You go out to the sea every day, and believe me, there's a high tide and a low tide. So if you can't swim and you're stuck with the low tide and you go out there and you're enjoying the water, just walking at your comfort level, but the high tide comes in, what's gonna happen? That's your death. You can find that, that's something that you didn't teach yourself to swim.
Born to Achieve. Born to Achieve. Welcome to Born to Achieve podcast, the show that inspires and motivates you to unlock your full potential and achieve your goals. With your host, Warren Andrew Pinder. Let's get started on this week's episode of Born to Achieve. Born to Achieve.
Imagine all the things that you would have done, growing up as a child and what you would have enjoyed, and today, how things have changed so much, and you just, have memories of those great times of fun that you encountered. I'm sitting here with Marvin Storr, my neighbor and my boy, and, we were just sitting there and talking, and, I'm just sharing with him how it is that things that you did years ago were so simple, but today everything is mass produced, and, it's one of the things that you just do not understand, that it changes. That's like for us in life, man. Where we are now, if we continue to stay where we were 20 years ago, that's, showing a sign of no growth. But that's how nature is. We right there surrounded by some trees. You're looking at the pear tree and this soursop tree, and how last year it wasn't bearing, but, today you have pears that's, look so bright and plump. And, I was telling Marvin that, you have to really be open-minded and of a perspective that you have to change with the times. Back in the day, there were great franchises and stores around that, we all visited. You can name something like House of Sale and all these other things that, Marvin, you can remember, things where when you first came to Nassau, and you can remember so many things that that today they're not here. They're just not here. But when we sit down and we look and we listen and we wonder why they don't exist today, you ask the question, that's just something you don't know. But if you plan and you go, the house that you lived in may not be there any longer, or it's dilapidated, and persons just felt that, hey, I outgrew that, so I didn't want to live there any longer. There's no need for me to be there because the neighborhood is run down and persons moved in and they're not, the same persons that I grew up with. The circle of friends that I now have aren't the same. So, it's all about you and believing in your mind where do you want to be? Because if you wanted to hold back progress and stay in that environment, you would not have grown to where you are now. The comfort of air conditioning when you had fans, or, having to sleep, drenched in sweat because you had to push out window. But today technology comes, and now you have these ductless air conditioners around us, and, this comfort zone of progress. And that's what our life is about, is evolving. So don't expect things to remain the same, because it won't. But there are some things that you can do to literally ensure that even though things may not remain the same, the experiences can help you determine where you want to be and how you want to live your life. So that if you had it hard and you used to take sandwich to school in a brown paper bag because you couldn't afford to, and you don't want your children to have to sweat that same experience that you had, sharing shoes and having to sleep in the same bed. There were persons, that can identify that, some of them, like 5 of them had to sleep in a full-size bed. They had to share a bed. The house that you lived in had a tin roof. Today now you can imagine that your progress and your determination can put you into, a nice elaborate space, a comfortable space that you can really appreciate, that eases your mind in terms of your growth and development. Nassau, as it was, where we stay right now, we stay in the area where they call Carmichael Road, it's a donkey road. So you hear persons talking that back from the 60s that, no cars used to come out here. But now you have everyone looking out, they're passing by trying to find an apartment. We're sitting right here right now, and persons would drive through this looking to see if there's an apartment available or a piece of land that's available for sale, in such an area. And wherever you are in the world, I'm sure you experience the same thing. But what is important is the lesson. What is the lesson that you learn and understand that things don't remain the same? You could be here today and in an environment that is stagnant. You could be in a job right now that you're not happy. You could be around where someone is backbiting you. You're a supervisor on the job and you're not understanding, why you're trying to do your best to make everything work properly on the job, to make, the system that's put in place work. But persons are pulling you back because they're not accepting the fact that, this is what I'm comfortable with. This is where I want to be. They may not have, the understanding of what it takes, but I come to work every day and I do my job and I don't care, but I get in a paycheck. So when we sit down and I was just explaining to him, simple, the average salary of a person may be $300-400 a week. But if they stay there, they're not going to progress because they got to pay. When you calculate that and it comes into monthly salary, half of your salary going toward, finding somewhere to pay rent. So it's like when you start and really to just take a moment, right, to sit back and think about these things. If you accept the fact that you want to stay where you are, things are changing. And as they change, if you don't change, you're going to stay right there in that old, dilapidated building that has a life expectancy of maybe 50 years, all right? And, you have to go through the old wiring, and technology has now come forward and produced new wiring and how you can, energy efficiency, your appliances and everything changes. So should be you. That's how you have to change. You have to change with the changing times that come. You go out to the sea every day, and believe me, there's a high tide and a low tide. So if you can't swim and you're stuck with the low tide and you go out there and you're enjoying the water, just walking at your comfort level, but the high tide comes in, what's going to happen? That's your debt. You can find that, that's something that you didn't teach yourself to swim. So that comfort zone of you playing in the water in low tide is going to be detrimental to you when high tide comes. So you have to look and understand that as you go out, business places and plazas that, for instance, I recall Palmdale used to be the shopping mecca of the Bahamas, where all the name brand stores that were offered at the time is there. Now, the mall of Marathon came and everything went into indoor closed mall, right? Persons understood that, the mall came about, and as the mall came about, there's energy efficiency came up, and there's high bills and everything that is understood that in these bills, persons decide, what? Maybe the mall way is not the way to go. So you started finding strip malls where you didn't have to, air condition the whole enclosed area of an enclosed mall that cost thousands of dollars a month to actually, make it comfortable. So things has to change.
Thank you for joining today's podcast. We'll be right back.
Achieve Man, written by Warren Andrew Pinder and Dominique Bradford. This book passionately focuses on the challenges women have been made to go through and how to overcome them. In some cultures, being a woman disadvantages the girl child. This book carefully exposes the hurdles you might face. This masterpiece is the ultimate self-help guide for women. It reveals your true purpose and identity. Get your copy today. Available from Amazon.
We now return to today's podcast.
Change is good, but you have to actually accept change. And in accepting change, you want your mindset to change as technology change. So you have to embrace the change that is coming. We can't sit and just always think about what was in the past. You know, we can't, I did a video recently about, I went back to my homestead and I cleaned up my homestead and I looked around my homestead and saw that the persons that were there that I grew up with, some of them have gone on, some have died, some have changed. No one is living there. I don't know the people around there. I said, there are a few, you know, and thank God that, you know, they're preserving the environment. But, you know, you sit down and you look at it and now I'm saying what used to be a nice neighborhood is turning into a commercial. You know, my sister was gifted through a will the property where I grew up with. And I'm saying to her, you're a doctor, Fran, this would make a nice place for you to put, you know, a medical practice, you know, because look around, right on the street out there, there's someone, there's a gastrologist who has an office, there's a lab, there's some, and where you are, you're in a prime location where it's needed, you know, medical center is needed, you know, a community clinic. Your thoughts process must be able to adapt to change. As we said, you know, there are businesses there around. Morris Toy Center, where back in the day, kids used to love to go and see the lights. Santa, you know, taking pictures with Santa, and you know, this big toy Santa coming for Christmas, and they open that up. That's no longer existed because the vision of someone that took it to that point, they're gone, and there's someone else with a new vision that has come about, and that's not their interest. We need to be able to plan our lives and understand through the plan of where we are. We work hard every day to you know, give our kids the opportunity to be able to advance themselves and be able to compete in this ever-changing world. You know, one of the things that I'm extremely, you know, passionate about is the fact that when I look around and you see, you know, as it rains and there's flooding and so forth, and because there are changes being made and you're knocking out the forest and, you know, you're not allowing the natural existing of ecology to take its place because you're replacing it with buildings, and there's no way for the natural drain off as is meant to be to happen. So all of these things are things that are changing. So of course, life as you know it would not remain the same, but we must be able to strike a balance with the changes that have come forth. We have to be able to know and not forget that as we grow into these elaborate houses and elaborate buildings that we're building, we got to remember that there are certain things that we need to be able to share. We need to strike a balance and share that, you know, we need greenery, we need trees to be able to suck up the ozone and provide the natural ecology to actually take its course. So as we change, let's not forget where we came from and how simple things were, you know, to make things happen. Let's not overlook the fact that if we begin to continue with this mass production and we're putting up all the smog into the air and so forth, and the ozone layer is being clogged and the process is not happening, wherein, you know, we're causing the Arctic to melt. Okay, you're going to find that, you know, you're going to find rising tides somewhere else because, you know, the glaciers are melting and that water, the tides are rising. So more and more you'll find flooding throughout other parts of the world. You know, again, you know, change is good. Nothing remains the same. So, you know, as Marvin, as I'm saying to you, it's just so much that in sitting down, if persons would just simply take the time to understand that growth, personal growth, is about learning exactly what all exists, how and where it started, understanding that we must always be in harmony with nature, that we must always be, it's good to dream, it's good to dream. There are persons around the world trying to build buildings into the sky, but, you know, what could be the negative effect if we allow this to continue without properly protecting the environment and protecting what, you know, has been given to us by God. You know, during the pandemic, we sat down and we were able to really listen and see the trees, see the new growth from trees. And, you know, I'm sitting right now and I'm just feeling the breeze. The past several weeks here has been extremely hot. Temperatures up in you know, the late 90s. And I'm sitting down and I'm saying, boy, in a couple of years, persons are not going to be able to actually work in this heat unless we put telescopic umbrellas up that can shade a complete construction site. Because just physically, it's going to be harder on our bodies to be able to endure the heat due to our, lack of protecting what God has given us. There's so many examples. You could have sit down and remember, man, and you could have gone into a franchise and bought, a combo for less than $5. Now those prices aren't the same. Gas prices are changing. The cost of living is changing. Nothing remains the same. So it doesn't make sense complaining. You need to be in harmony with what is going on and start to identify those of you that are in position, those in legislative positions, need to understand that we need to now begin to reverse and put the basics into development. Go back in time and understand why was it the way it was. So when you find that there are businesses that's gone out of, thriving businesses that were around before, where persons really, really could remember, why are they not here today? I'm just trying to tie it all in and get a full picture of where we are at present compared to where we were in the past, and look forward to the future by marrying this whole concept. So it's just basically looking back in time and seeing where we are and what we are experiencing right now, trying to bring in that if we're going to continue the way it is, we need to learn from our mistakes, because you cannot continue to do the same thing that you were doing and expect to get the same result. So it just turns right back that where you at for your life. If you want a better salary, you can't just continue to show up to work at 9 o'clock and leave at 5. If your boss is telling you that they need more out of you, you can't be disgruntled because they have changed policies in the company. You can't, if the regulations have changed, that, take for instance 9/11. We could have traveled the world freely, and just now the TSA has come about, and there are so much changes that are being made that you have to accept these changes, adapt to these changes, and try to learn from the reasons why the changes had to be made.
Thank you for joining today's podcast. We'll be right back.
Achieve Men, written by Warren Andrew Pinder. In this book, you will learn the 7 steps to achieving your dreams and goals. Given the vision to share how the acronym of the word achieve can be used systematically in your day-to-day life. Each of us is given a unique gift from God. Get your copy today. Available in print, ebook, and audiobook from Amazon.
We now return to today's podcast.
It's important that this becomes a part of our daily lives, that we must understand that in life, changes will come, and we have to be able to accept them firstly, to adapt to them. So at the end of the day, it's just one that this topic is something that is so complicated in understanding that most persons don't think about why things have changed. And that's the point that I'm making today, that as you would have gone back and, persons that are still alive today, and, a suit is still a suit. You'll find persons that style has come back. The same way they made shoes back then is the way in which the principle of the basis of a shoe is still the basis of a shoe. But we would have gone and, killed a lot of animals to get, a more, cowhide and, sheepskin shoe and all these things that were important to us living in balance. So we accept the fact that we're creating some of the things that are making change. Well, we have to be conscious of the effects of what we, our desire to look better, our desire to live more comfortable, our desire to travel further, our desire to make more things, our desire to produce more and create more emissions and send and, cause an ozone layer to just come across the whole land, and wherein, the natural process of the sun, the rain, and the elements to flow in which they should, because of our greed and because of our expanding knowledge. There are persons who realize that they can make, materials from less trees or replant the trees that you cut. So when you're actually looking at this whole process of where we are and having to suffer, the consequences of our action, like I've spoken about, we have to take responsibility. And once we've taken that responsibility, we have to now begin to research better ways of us doing these things in terms of, how do we want to progress, start to look into, new methodologies, start to look at things that can come, hempcrete, rather than going out there and chopping down all the hills, looking at things that can be grown on trees, that we can plant a tree and leave the actual natural terrain in place. If rather than taking fill, we try and find ways of building suspended slabs and try and find ways, stop going in the ocean and messing with the ocean, cutting up, chopping to build these fancy resorts and so forth. We don't want to stop progress, but let's try and design in harmony with nature so that the changes that will come will be, somewhat more conducive for our lifestyle. So things, of course, can't stay the same, but we can determine if we begin to take the chance how best we can assist and making it more comfortable. In the Bahamas, we celebrate a festival called Junkanoo. And for years, we have gone on to the major strip called Bay Street and displayed all the creative talent and the best music. It's called the best show in the world. But in order for it to really be expanded to the world, there has to be change. Maybe it has to be moved, but no one is really looking at it in terms of where and how do we, expand this and be able to offer this experience to so many persons that once you've seen it, a vibrant sound, you get, songs of drums and cowbells and persons in color just displayed in such a way that is never seen anywhere else in the world. It's called Junkanoo. But in order for us to really, see it, the full potential of it, there has to be change. And that's a debate that's been going on here in this country for such a long time. But in order for us to really be able to get it, there has to be an understanding of persons accepting the fact that this is what we call our thing, has to grow in such a way that persons must put together the best minds, the practitioners of Junkanoo, and all those that are responsible have to come together. The actual sponsorship, the companies that, go out and enjoy this year in and year out, that, you want to share it with so many other persons that, you could create a whole industry. Change must come. So as simple as that. And I can tell you, there are so many people. I'm an avid fan of Junkanoo. I love Junkanoo to my core. I was doing it from I was 6 years old. And I understand the principle of it and where it comes from. And everyone that goes out yearly to see it and, the amount of money that's put into it. But at present right now, it's something that's just being put out there and a lot of money expended. How can we bottle this? How can we bottle this and make sense of it? That other persons will be able to understand the dynamics, the tantalizing music that brings together a theme, that the rhythmic beat and the persons in the choreographed dance and the excitement, persons actually going across Rawson Square, similar to that in Trinidad. How do we send this to the world? And the only way to do it is through change, understanding that what was being done for the past umpteen years, there must be some dynamic to change it. That at the end of the day, the parade flows. That persons begin to see, that the practitioners begin to see reap benefits of their hard work and their energy, their God-given talent that's being displayed through this festival. So it's just sitting down and I'm tying it all in, that once we begin to understand that change is inevitable for growth, regardless of where you are in your life, you accept it. I remember just for a moment, and I want to end with this and just remembering the fact that, you're not anyone growing up, you want to be, you'll drive around and see neighborhoods and, I wish I could live in that neighborhood, and I wish I could do this, or I wish I could have a better job. I wish I could see the world, and I wish it's just simple accepting the fact that in our minds today, we can go on Google and actually begin to explore where it is we want to visit. We can begin to experience that, and that drive will lead us to changing our mindset and leading us to changing our positions of where we are in everything.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Born to Achieve. Born to Achieve. We hope you found it informative, inspiring, and motivating. Born to Achieve. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and family. Stay focused on your goals, and we'll see you on the next episode of Born to Achieve. Born to Achieve. Born to Achieve. Born to Achieve. Born to Achieve.